When I heard that Atlus was releasing a new IP a couple months after dropping a remake for Persona 3, I honestly didn't know what to expect. Was it going to be any good? Are people going to support it? Do I really want to commit to another potential 60+ hour game? After watching the overwhelmingly positive reviews roll in, I decided to bite the FOMO bullet and give it a try. And after completing the game with about 70+ hours in, I have a lot I want to go over. Don't worry, this review will be completely spoiler free for anyone who's interested in giving the game a try. If you're new to the channel and enjoy game reviews and essays such as the video you're watching now, then you're in the right place. Consider subscribing and tapping the bell icon so you never miss a vid from yours truly. With everything out the way, strap yourself in, hands and feet aside to ride at all times, and somebody cue my intro. Metaphor ReFantazio, Fantazio? However you pronounce it. It's a brand new IP from Atlus where instead of being in a high school setting, we're thrust into the world of fantasy fighting goblins, soldiers, monsters, and even some dragons along the way. After the assassination of the king, the throne sits empty, and just when the prince is prepared to step up and take the throne, he too was almost assassinated, and a curse was placed on him. With no heirs, the will of the late king decreed that the next king will be elected by the people, kind of like in a Total Drama Island style game, where whoever has the most supporters at the end will become the king. This is where the protagonist, aka you, steps in and goes on the quest to lift the curse and become the king. Of course, being a JRPG and all, you meet friends along the way to help you on your journey. More on them later. Metaphor takes place in the United Kingdom of Ukrainia, in a land of fantasy where you have different tribes of people. You have the Clemmer tribe, which is the most popular in the lands and often a tribe full of nobles that hold many important positions in society. They're best categorized with their horns on the side of their faces, or heads. The Ruzantes are often recognized by their long ears and have excellent physique and physical abilities. Because of these characteristics, a lot of them are operating in military personnel and have assumed important positions. It's also worth noting that the women in this tribe are usually stronger than the men. Yujis are people similar looking to bats with their ears and wings. They are known to have night vision and a sensitivity to sound, which also boosts their hearing. They are often one of the more smaller races, and with their appearances and abilities, it makes them deemed as creepy. This causes them to face discrimination and heavy prosecution. On the opposite spectrum, we have the Nidia tribe, who are characterized by their jewel-like beautiful eyes and unique hair colors. They are all sociable and are said to excel at winning people's hearts. However, they also have a reputation as being liars and deceivers, kind of like my ex, but it makes them difficult for them to travel safely outside the city and even in the current day Ukrainia. The Parapus tribe has ears and tails like those of beasts. They are blessed with physical abilities, though in a different way in comparison as to the strength of the Ruzante tribe. Although they are populous as the Clemmer and Ruzante tribe, they are often prevented from participating in politics and face racial injustice as well. The Ishka tribe are recognized for their angelic wings and are said to be more intelligent than the other races. They are a race that attracts admiration thanks to both their appearance and their traits, but they also often look down upon the other races due to them not being as intelligent as them. The defining feature of the Rogue tribe, outside of them being available in either dark or alabaster pale skin hues, is their longevity, with some living more than twice the average lifespan of other races. They age at the same pace until adolescence, spending the rest of their lives in middle and old age. I wish dolls would age the same. The Mustari tribe have a third eye on their foreheads, similar to Hiei from Yu Yu Hakusho. However, unlike Hiei and getting the ability to summon a cool dark dragon, their third eye actually helps them see Magla, which is mana or magic in this world. Because they wear unique masks and traditional costumes to cover their eye, some people might view them as creepy, and few actually know their real faces that are underneath. Due to the people viewing them as such, they're usually cast away to their own island and even adopted their own indigenous beliefs from Saintism, which is the main religion in Metaphor. In their belief, they worship a dragon god known as Dragon Et, and even sacrifice a priest to appease his wrath. If you want to learn more about Saintism and the Dragon God, I highly recommend you check out some separate videos, as going over it now will make the video longer than it already has to be. Then we finally have the Elder Tribe, which is the tribe of the main character. There are no real character riches for this tribe, and the numbers are much smaller than any of the other races. The numbers are so small in fact that many people consider it rare to come across one, and some even consider them not to even exist. Just showing their faces make people uncomfortable, and they are subject to extreme prejudice, and their presence in large cities is seen as a prelude for great calamities and disasters. There's also half-bloods, but they're just mutts, nothing really special about them. I really enjoyed the world building in this game a lot. Just reading up on some of the lore for the different tribes and the history of how the world was like before leading up to the events of the game, it really gave me Mass Effect 1 vibes, just by exploring the different races, the politics of the galaxy in Mass Effect, and just seeing the prejudicial injustice that occurred for the different races. Speaking of prejudice, this game is very racist. We even see a Parapus being executed in the opening hour of the game, and there's an entire crowd cheering it on.
For misuse of an igniter, you will hang by the neck until dead. Yeah!
There's times where the MC, who's alien as I mentioned, will either have to pay an extra just to enter an item shop, or even downright being denied just because they're alien. Hell, every major incident that occurs in the story is off the blame on us just because we're in the surrounding area. I was thoroughly surprised by how detailed Atlus made the world building for this game, and it's definitely their best to date. Now that we have the story and the world building out of the way, it's time for the bread and butter of every game in my opinion, which is the gameplay. Metaphor per usual with the turn-based RPG, but with its own spin. Instead of the more modern Persona games where only the MC can use multiple powers, now everyone can swap between different classes in the form of archetypes, which is similar to Persona 2. The archetype system is super deep and even has 2, 3, and even in some instances 4 tiers where you can branch off from other different types of archetypes. For example, the Secret archetype, which is the first for the MC, has 2 other different tiers in the Secret class, and even a third towards the late game. You can level up these archetypes by obviously getting into battles, and there's also hero fruits which helps boost your archetype XP to level up faster. You can gather these either by studying different archetypes along the way, or you can even buy hero fruit seeds from a vendor and grow them in your gauntlet run. In addition to the combat, you also have outer world combat, where you can hit enemies a couple of times to stagger them before jumping to turn-based gameplay. This is intuitive because you now have multiple ways to face the enemy, and if you're even over leveled, you can just one-shot them and acquire the XP you would have gotten from battle. If you have a bit of downtime in between the story, you also have bounties, which are different bosses you can encounter in their own separate dungeons. But before you enter the dungeons, it will be highly recommended you speak to an informant first, who can provide you information about these dungeons such as enemies' weaknesses, just to make the grinding a bit easier. Speaking of grinding, I really wish there was a Mementos or a Tartarus style of grinding for the game, because it desperately needed it. I'm used to grinding in dungeons similar to Persona 4, but it was a bit hard going back to that style after playing both Persona 5 and the more recent Persona 3 Reloaded this year. The SP grind was brutal. I've literally spent hours on end grinding just to get about 2 or 3 levels. This led me to ultimately look on Reddit to discover there was a much more efficient way to grind, and I discovered that for some reason the game grants you significantly more XP by playing on one of their easier difficulties. I'm not sure why Atlus went this route because, for one, you got more XP from playing on the harder difficulty in Persona 5 and 3 Reload, but also, 2, playing on storytelling mode, which is the easiest mode, makes fights easier, which, duh, but it kind of nullifies the depth that is their combat. Why optimize my party to ensure we prioritize attacking enemies' weaknesses, buffing, and getting our heals in, when I can just make all the party members run a physical archetype and beast through the entire dungeon with no problem? You kind of see where I'm coming from now? Also, I'm not sure if it was bug or intentional, but for some reason, after changing my game to storytelling mode from normal, I was unable to change my difficulty back, which kind of threw me off and rubbed me the wrong way a bit. The dungeons also could be a bit better as well. The only memorable dungeon I could think of is the second story dungeon, just because of the enemy types you will face. Some of these dungeons had insane backtracking and puzzle areas, which I'm used to in Atlus games, but it was a bit too much for my personal taste in this one. Just like in 3 Reload, all new to Metaphor is the team of synthesis, which are big powerful abilities that can do extra damage, heal, buff, and even debuff enemies. There are certain requirements that must be meshed for each synthesis, such as pairing the right archetypes together, and making sure you have enough MP for the skill you're trying to use. I also really did enjoy the social links for this game, especially for Hazme, Stroll, Marie, and Alonso. I could go more in depth about the social links, but just to avoid any potential spoilers, I'd rather not. Just know that these are some of the best social links since Persona 4 in my opinion. And of course for Atlus, the music. Oh man, the music. I actually have a theory that Atlus is really a music label, but they're funding their music business through their games. Metaphor is a game full of fantasy, social injustices, flawed democracy, and some great gameplay, all rolled up in what could be potentially a game of the year from Atlus. I was completely lost in the world of Uchronia by always catching up on my lore, whether that be reading some of the tribes, the important people, history, and more. The combat, besides the insane normal difficulty grinding and lackluster dungeons, was really fun, and I found myself always unlocking different archetypes to optimize my party and to ultimately learn more about the late game archetypes. P.S. The Prince archetype was fire. The story was definitely a 10 out of 10 and one of the best I played not just of this year, but quite frankly of all time. I mentioned before on my P2 vid that I feel like Persona 2 has always been the best Persona, due to its mature story and having these characters deal with real life issues. But Metaphor took this formula and just knocked it out of the park, man. This really has me excited for what Persona 6 could be, and I would really like for Atlus to stay with this approach. That's why I'm going to be giving Metaphor a 9.5 out of 10 and solidifying this as my personal game of the year. This game also further proves my point that these drifters don't really be playing games. If they did, they wouldn't be up in arms about Yasuke being woke and not being historically accurate in Assassin's Creed, but instead they'll be on this game because this is easily the most woke game of the year. If you played Metaphor, then let me know how you feel about the game in the comments below. And if you're on the fence about trying the game out yourself, then I hope I gave you some much needed insight. If you liked the video, then hit the thumbs up for me and consider subbing to the channel, as I definitely plan on dropping more vids in the future. Once again, I hope you all stay safe and stay dangerous. It's been your boy Rob. Yes, just Rob. And I'm out. Peace.